The secret language of business. This one is important. This one is all about your mental game, your inner game, and your inner psychology. Um, this is also going to be helpful in later parts of the interviewing and job hunting process where you have to rewrite your resume in a certain way, or even the way that you explain your answers. But it's also a mental exercise. By knowing this information, you are going to gain a lot of confidence. And that is really what I am trying to do here throughout this entire course is yes, I want to enable you with the right tactics and how to polish a resume, interviewing skills, but those are all things that I call outer game. Those are things that you actions you take, actions you do. And that's 50% of this whole interviewing and job hunting process. The rest of it is all inner game. So your psychology, your inner, your self-worth, how you perceive yourself throughout this interviewing process. Because for a lot of people, they perceive the company as high status, the employer as high status, and then they perceive themselves as lower status, and they tend to come into the interviews in a very reserved, anxious, nervous, closed off way. And if I can help enable you and fix or improve your inner game, oh my god, you're going to stand out. And so I really want to do that. That's the intention of this lesson, is to help you gain that conviction and come in hot. So you can't just show up and start yapping. So what does this mean? What I mean by this is that there is a secret language that we speak in business. And I'll get to it in a second. But the way that you perceive and describe your prior achievements is exactly how others will perceive them too. So the way that you feel is the way that others are going to feel too, especially as you sell yourself throughout the interviewing process. And so, are you proud of what you've accomplished, even if it's a little accomplishment? If you feel proud about yourself and proud about the prior accomplishments, other people are going to pick up on this energy and also feel the same way. But if you don't, then you'll come across as underwhelming, and it'll actually display throughout your interviews and display in the way that you present yourself and overall how you should. In other words, the way that you feel about yourself and your accomplishments internally is the way that it's going to display in the real world. And this isn't a motivational or psychological course, but uh, but also it is. It also is. Um, and so if you don't have your mental game right, you're going to set yourself up to fail. You can learn the secret language, though. Um, Anyone can. And that's the good news. And when you learn the secret language, you will know exactly how to frame your past experiences. And so by learning this language, you're also going to feel more confidence in your prior experiences. So even if you didn't, it doesn't require that you had the best, most glorious achievements in the world to gain this confidence. And so the reason that I am teaching you this language now, before we get into the interviewing, before we get into the resume module, is because by the time you get there, I already want you to have this language. I want you to know this language by then. I really want you to have it mastered and fully internalized. And so I'm bringing it up early in the course, so it starts to manifest. So, what really matters? Um, my previous CEO at my previous company, um, she was a really sharp lady. And I never personally spoke to her one on one, but I would overhear conversations that she would have with other people. I heard her in meetings and also in the hallways where someone approached her with an idea. And almost every time she would ask these three questions, which are, what does it do? Why is that important to the customer? And what value does it bring to the customer? In other words, she wanted to hear the meat and potatoes. What does this actually do for the other person? What is this idea or product that you're approaching me with? And how is it going to benefit me? How's it going to benefit the customer? How's it going to benefit anyone? Because if we're really not talking about impact or value, then we're wasting our time. We're running a business here, and I don't have the time to be presented with ideas that don't actually result into anything tangible, which for a business, that means money. And those questions really stuck with me. And so, what I'm trying to say here is this: businesses and sales organizations speak a secret language, and that is money, money or revenue. And they're always thinking about it from this angle. Will this make me more money, or will it save me money? If yes, then this idea or product or person or new hire that I'm going to bring on my team is of value. And so that's what I'm teaching you here today. How can you speak this secret language so that you are perceived as higher status and higher value, and so that you yourself feel that too about yourself, so that you feel that internally and you project it outwardly? As hippie and woo as it sounds, it's true. And I wanted to show you this screenshot from Twitter, actually. Elon Musk tweeted these sometime last year and over the few years, and I love this question. And it really also perfectly portrays what I'm trying to get at here. And Elon, of course, speaks this secret language. He's also, worth 40 billion or whatever it is. And so obviously he speaks the language. But notice this: some guy named Gary calls him out. He says, this is propaganda, blah, 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 blah. This isn't political. That's not what this is about. I want you to look at Elon's response, though, which is, look, I gave Starlinks to Ukraine and lost over 80 million. In other words, I contributed 80 million to Starlinks to send to Ukraine, while also putting SpaceX and myself at serious risk of a cyber attack. So, in other words, I sent $80 million worth of product over to Starlink or to Ukraine. And by the way, I also sent a mission called space. I sent a rocket to space. So screw you. You're talking all this crap on the internet. What have you done? What value have you provided? And here's another example just to drive the point home. He's just talking about, hey, it means I created 50,000 jobs created jobs for 50,000 people, and supplied over 250,000 people indirectly, thus supporting 500,000 families. What have you done? So important. Really want you to think about your prior experiences in a similar light. which is what value did they bring? What impact did they have? And notice how Elon talks in numbers. That's really important. He's very good at quantifying it because when you quantify something, it magnifies it. And when you magnify it, it adds importance to it. And so that's what we're getting at here. So, how can you do the same? The beauty of this is that anyone can do it. However, you must learn how to translate your prior experiences into money or revenue. And so when I talk about prior experiences, it could be anything: work, college, internships, volunteer work, projects, etc. And so step one is, think of any project that you worked on at school or at work. Seriously, any work at all, and or any additional responsibility that you took on. And step two is think about how that project ties back into money being earned or saved. Did it somehow increase the number of customers for the team or the department, for example? If so, approximately how much? And it's okay to guess. And you could even not only guess, but even amplify the numbers a little bit, just a little bit, just to make them a pinch more impressive. And so that's exactly how you learn the language. You just translate your experiences into money or revenue. How did it lead to money or revenue? Um, and it helps if you quantify it a little bit, right? So this is just an example at the bottom. So let's say that you work at a store. Think about the number of customers that you helped or see on a daily basis, or the number of calls that you made per day. And then guess what that led to in terms of money. So, for example, if you talk to 20 customers a day and each customer spends approximately $10 that day, then you bring in the business or the team about $200 a day. And so then you want to multiply that number by the number of days you work in a month. So let's say you work 20 days a month. That's 400 customers a month. Each spend $10. Well, it's somehow I got the math wrong here, but I added it to you making money you making the company about $8,000 in revenue a month. And so you can, it's really that simple. It might feel challenging at first because you're like, wait a minute, I did this measly task over and over and over again, and I don't know how to tie it back into money or revenue. Just pause and think about it. Look, I'll even do this live. I have not rehearsed this, but as an example, I had one of the most menial internships in college. I was literally doing copies of all the documents and digitizing them and making them into PDFs so that we can post them on the internet because I worked in an office. And so my job was to scan documents all day, literally. If I had a guess, I probably scanned somewhere around like 300 pages a day, let's say. 3,000 pages a day. Okay, so what does that mean for the business? If I did scan 3,000 and then uploaded them to the internet, this meant that my team could then convert those 3,000 pages into a book that we could publish online. And we published that that book for about $15 each, and we sold over 1,000 copies of that book, all because I was successfully scanning over 3,000 pages a day. And so I could say that, hey, through my work, I helped make the money, I helped make the company over, let's say, $10,000 a month because I was helping process and digitize over 3,000 documents a day, or whatever that adds up to per month. Let's say 36,000 pages a month. So I just I just made my whole work experience more impressive. I and all I was doing was copying and digitizing and scanning thousands and thousands of pages each day. That's all I was doing. But did you see how I tied that work back into money? Because that's literally all we are doing. And so I want you to see your accomplishments for what they really are. What regular people are going to be doing and what other candidates are going to be doing is they're going to, they self describe their relationship or their work as something very simple, and they undersell themselves or undervalue themselves. So, for example, they'll say things like, yeah, I'm in customer service, I sell phone plans for a living. But a killer or a top performer who really understands the value of their work says something like, I'm in customer service and my job is to sell as many phones plans as possible. On average, that means about 15. Talk to about 15 people a day. Each phone plan costs approximately $4,000. And so this means I typically sell $400, and this typically means I sell about $6,000 a day, which means that last year I brought the company about $1.4 million in revenue. Boom. Notice how we're talking about the same thing here, but we're describing it differently. We're telling the story much differently. And most importantly, we're talking the secret language here, which is money. And when you're able to talk the secret language and tie it back to money, then you allow everybody else to first of all, you allow yourself to understand your own contributions, which gives you confidence. And but that also, when you understand that and you know it, then when you tell it to someone else, they just pick up on it too. And they're like, "Oh, geez, this guy's great. This guy's a top performer. He knows his numbers, he knows his worth." And so I really want you to get better at articulating to yourself what you truly brought in so you can get a better idea here. And I think many of you are going to be amazed and surprised by how much you actually contributed and how much you actually brought to the table, because unless you're actively doing this now, you really have no idea. And it's important to sit down and pause and think about truly how much you actually do bring to the table. And yeah, that's really it here. And so this is going to come across during your job interviews later in this journey, later in this course, where it's just completely going to change the way that you even talk about yourself. And so I encourage you to begin noodling on this. Some more examples. Again, this is easy. Don't complicate it. It is a thinking exercise more than anything. It's a strategy, like brainstorming session more than anything. Some of you are gonna log off and shut the computer after this and be like, okay, what did I really get done? Right? Take the time to think it through. If it's not gonna come naturally, take the time to think it through. So, for example, restaurant, I upsold 10 customers a day, by selling them up, let's say dessert, or asking them if they wanted to buy anything else on the side, if they wanted to buy the guacamole or add the avocado, right? You upsold 10 customers a day, that resulted in about $5,000 in revenue each month. Boom, you made it about money. You're talking secret language. Retail, processed over 200 returns a month. I saved the company about $5,000 in revenue each month. College, I fundraised over $15,000 in 6 months. I talked to over 200 students. Teacher, I helped. This was an interesting one because teachers, how do you tie it back to money? They don't, their job is to teach people, not to sell anything. But here we go. I, as a teacher, helped over 100 students by editing their essays, which led to a 50% increase in passing grades and leading the district in math. Look at this. Why did I put math? Leading the district in English and getting over $50,000 in grants the following year. Look at how I just tied that back to revenue or money. And look, if you can't tie it back to money, tie it back to the number one thing that you were held accountable for. So, for example, if you were held accountable to like customer satisfaction, then do that. Link your story or your work experience back to that. Um, but some roles, like teachers, again, are not judged by revenue or money. But as much as possible, I want you to tie it back to money. Trust me, it all leads. If you've worked for any business, it all leads back to the money. And again, really, what I want to drive home here is that many people underestimate their self worth and achievements, particularly during the job hunting process. They perceive the employer and the hiring managers as having higher status when really we have value too as the candidate. If they don't fill the role, they're screwed. And so by doing this exercise and learning the secret language, you boost your status and you tip the scale in your favor. Other pro tips: it's okay to amplify the numbers by 10 to 20%. Do not overstretch the truth or lie. Look, amplifying is okay. 10%, 20%, it's insignificant, but it does make it better. It does, we're sprinkling a little bit more magic in our numbers and answers by amplifying it by 10 to 20%. And so it's a little bit of a stretch, but not too much where we're blatantly lying. And again, this is really a thinking exercise for you. I need you to feel relaxed when you're coming into this. And so by instilling the proper belief systems, we start to remove any mental blockers. Again, the job hunt is about 50% inner game, so like mindset, psychology, and 50% outer game, so tactics, polished resume, solid interviewing skills. And the good news here is I don't need you to have grandiose numbers or huge dollar values here. The point of this exercise is that by simply knowing and having that data in the back of our minds, we start to feel more confident. The numbers can be big or small. What counts is having them. It's better to have them than not. And so begin to think about this now so that by the time the job interviews come, you have absolute confidence in your prior work experiences and what you bring to the table. So now, can you answer this? What have you done? I bet you can. I bet you can answer this question a lot better now. So I'll leave you with this. I need you to be hyped about your own accomplishments. I need you convinced that what you did prior to today, prior to getting here, prior to breaking into tech sales counts. So go through this exercise, think hard, journal about it, and come back with that information.